27,000 participants, 376 events, and we've had about 2.5 million people cross the stages in its 90 years of history. You've got anything from your youngest 7, 8-year-old reading poetry up to your elite opera scholarships where you're vying for the opportunity to get a scholarship of $30,000 to go and study overseas. It's got a platform for whether you just want a community choir to have a chance to be on a beautiful stage, right through to those who are looking for further educational opportunities.
It's not just a competition. It's always been so much more.
It's a well-known story now that I was that 15-year-old, one of 7, regional Sydney, no opportunity, not sure what I wanted to do. No one had been to university in my family. A very special teacher actually said, why don't you enter the Sydney Eisteddfod? Now, that's like going to the moon, because she said we could go to the Sydney Opera House. I didn't go to the Sydney Opera House. A child of my age living in the outer skirts of Sydney dreamed of being at the Opera House. So we travelled by train. We went to the Opera House. I then got some really amazing, beautiful feedback on what I did well, but more importantly, what I could do. Now, I didn't then go down the path of the stage and the spotlights. I then went and got an education degree. And then that piece of paper stayed with me for years because it meant that I could, if I tried anything and gave it a go, I could do something. Someone believed in me. Someone gave me that opportunity. Fast forward many years and I go back into the arts, which is my favourite thing of all things. And I was lucky enough 2 years ago with that same piece of paper still in my hand, apply and get the job.
My association with the Eisteddfod goes back well over 25 years. I was an alumnus of the Eisteddfod myself. I trained as a violinist, worked actually in the UK for a period of time and studied. The opportunity to serve on the board with the Eisteddfod was put forward, and that was way out of left field for me. But boy, was it attractive. You know, just I thought, wow, if I'm going to give up some years of my life and really commit to an organisation, this grassroots work was inspiring. And it is like joining a family. It's gone through a huge amount of change, and it's a real privilege to be working here at that time, and certainly with Annette and her team, this dynamic period.
All of my team still have the opportunity to do what it is in the arts that they're desperate to do. So yes, it's great that they're involved in the Sydney Eisteddfod, but they're all equally passionate artists themselves. So like I've got a beautiful young clarinetist who works for me 4 days a week. So she still plays professionally, but because she's of that younger generation, she can relate to our young participants and show them that you can be a performer, but you can also be an arts administrator.
It's a beast of the 30s, the Depression years, the Sydney Eisteddfod. Even though I'm not from Sydney, it was the Mecca, and during those Depression years, the Eisteddfod in Sydney was not created by a statute of Parliament, but probably the next best thing. It was vitally important for morale, for the city. The governor is the patron. We had very strong links traditionally to the Lord Mayor, to the secretary or director then, as it was called, of education. And so it was part and parcel of the fabric of the community.
I quite like our current history, and like Winnie Sue is currently studying in England at the moment, and she was the beautiful pianist who won our Kauai Piano Scholarship in 2022. What's really exciting is next month she's back in Australia to perform with the Willoughby Symphony, which is a beautiful orchestra on our North Shore. But not only is she performing now with an orchestra, which is fabulous, she's also going to give masterclasses to the next generation of young pianists on healthy practice, on healthy preparation for an Eisteddfod. So it's really lovely in that she's taken her opportunity, gone and got further education, but now coming back and sharing it. Last year, there was a little boy, 8-year-old Arun, and he stood up in a bow tie and 3-piece suit and read an Australian poem, High Explosion by Banjo Patterson. He had been desperately reading this poem at home, and his mother said, let's enter you. He then entered the Eisteddfod, wild applause, only matched by his mother's smile. But then on that same day, Jessica Pratt, another of the world's most beautiful singers, she gets up and says, I was in the Sydney Eisteddfod. Don't worry if you don't win. I didn't win. I've now got a career. Marilyn Jones was one of Australia's most beautiful prima ballerinas. She was the start of Australian ballet, okay? And her son is Stanton Welsh, who's the artistic director of the Houston Ballet. And Stanton says, "Can Mum come with me?" Can Mum come with you? I cannot believe I'm the luckiest girl who's going to have now Stanton and Marilyn at the Opera House. Marilyn, though, was more excited to meet the next generation of young dancers and was there back of house pointing her feet and showing what these young dancers should do. So for me, it's those stories, it's that giving back, it's that ongoing journey of sharing and friendship and companionship.
The organisation has never really relied upon government assistance, which is, I would say, quite unusual given the impact that it's had upon lives and upon the cultural landscape for just almost 100 years. And that is something that is changing very rapidly.
And it's lucky that we've had these generous people who have given us that sound footing, but now we need technology to support us. So we've undertaken a very major project to digitize and to even be able to sell tickets online. And then, of course, there's exciting news where we're creating our own theatre space where we can do the smaller events at Chippen Street with a couple of other major arts partners as part of that family so that we can all collaborate together.
The operations traditionally for the Eisteddfod involved church here, a high school here, the opera house, the town hall, where the boards approved, a very far-sighted strategy, which came from management, from Annette, which was to find a home for the Eisteddfod after 90 years. And we are thrilled. The launch is on the 9th of April.
This black box theatre, you can enter from any angle, and it's a theatre with lights and seats that are raised. If you as a young person are valued and you can see that you're practicing your craft in this beautiful space, imagine what else you can do. We've struggled desperately because after COVID, people are a little concerned about coming back and a little concerned about being in the general public. So yes, we do have our numbers of volunteers are down to about 75, and we're really pushing for more volunteers. Our staff is 7, but they're not full-time positions. And so the person who is actually doing our counting, you'll often see at the venue selling tickets. The person who is taking entries is there getting them on stage. It's no secret, but I did every weekend from May to August last year because I was just desperate to give every single young person that opportunity to get back on the stage. I was desperate for like-minded people who could share ideas and I could learn from and who had experience. It's connections to the rest of the world. It opens doors. And so when I was about to go to the conference, I rang a couple of people and I said, "Oh, I'm on my way over for the BIFF Festival. I'm from Sydney Eisteddfod." And straight away, I could get an appointment to talk to partners to find out what it was that they were looking for, what they needed. It also meant too that when I said to someone, "I'm struggling to get volunteers," they could go, "Yep, so am I." And then we could then do a session together where we talked about different ideas of how to get volunteers. By talking, you can get other ideas and you can find ways of doing things differently. And it's a really lovely community to be part of. It also too means that other people that go through the Eisteddfod can then, if they end up on a working holiday or a year's experience, they can meet up with like-minded community people. It puts them as part of that community, which is just amazing.